You are your own worst enemy. And until you admit this brutal fact, nothing in your life will change. Right now, you're sabotaging yourself with an attitude that attracts failure, repels opportunities, and convinces everyone around you that you're not worth investing in. You walk into rooms expecting rejection, approach challenges expecting defeat, and wonder why life keeps proving you right. The shocking reality is that your negative attitude is a self-fulfilling prophecy that creates the exact outcomes you claim you don't want. You're not a victim of bad luck or unfair circumstances. You're a victim of your own toxic mindset that poisons every opportunity before it has a chance to grow. Your attitude right now, at this very moment, is determining your future. Not your education, not your background, not your circumstances, but your attitude. And I'm going to prove this to you through a story that will change how you see everything. Maria Rodriguez walked into the towering glass building every morning at 5 a.m., carrying her cleaning supplies and wearing a uniform that most people never noticed. She was invisible to the executives rushing past her in their expensive suits. For 3 years, she cleaned their offices, emptied their trash, and listened to their conversations about million-dollar deals while she scrubbed their floor. But Maria had something they didn't know about, an attitude that would shock the corporate world. One morning, while cleaning the conference room, she overheard the CEO and his team struggling with a problem that was costing the company thousands of dollars daily. The cleaning crew was supposed to be invisible, but Maria couldn't stay silent. She knocked on the door and said, "Excuse me, sir, but I have an idea that might help." The executives looked at her like she had lost her mind. A janitor offering business advice? But something in her confident attitude made the CEO pause and say, "Go ahead, we're listening." Maria's solution was so brilliant, so simple, that it saved the company over $2 million in the first year. But here's what happened next that will blow your mind. The CEO didn't just thank her and send her back to cleaning. He recognized that her attitude, her willingness to think beyond her job title, her confidence to speak up, her belief that she had value to offer was exactly what his leadership team was missing within 18 months. Maria Rodriguez went from cleaning offices to sitting in the corner office as the company's chief innovation officer. Now, you might think this is just a lucky story. But let me tell you something that will change your life forever. Maria's transformation didn't happen because of luck. It happened because she understood a fundamental truth that most people miss completely. Your attitude is not determined by your position in life. Your position in life is determined by your attitude. Most people have this backwards. They think, when my circumstances change, then my attitude will change. But that's not how life works. That's not how success works. That's not how breakthrough works. Your attitude shapes your circumstances, not the other way around. Maria didn't wait for a better job to have a better attitude. She had a better attitude first, and the better job followed. Right now, there are people in your office, in your neighborhood, in your family, who have the same opportunities you have, the same access to information you have, the same 24 hours in a day that you have. But some are moving forward while others are stuck. Some are growing while others are complaining. Some are creating solutions while others are collecting excuses. What's the difference? It's not their circumstances, it's their attitude toward their circumstances. Your attitude is the lens through which you see everything in your life. Change the lens, and you change what you see. Change what you see, and you change how you respond. Change how you respond, and you change your results. It's that simple, and it's that powerful. And here's what most people don't understand about attitude. They think attitude is about positive thinking or saying nice things to yourself in the mirror. That's not attitude. That's just wishful thinking. Real attitude is about taking responsibility for your response to every situation in your life. It's about recognizing that while you cannot control what happens to you, you have complete control over what happens in you. Maria Rodriguez understood this. When she walked into that building every morning, she didn't see herself as just a janitor. She saw herself as a problem solver who happened to be working in cleaning services at the moment, She didn't define herself by her job title. She defined herself by her potential. And that attitude, that internal belief about who she was and what she was capable of, eventually became her external reality. Your attitude is your most powerful tool. And it's the one tool that nobody can take away from you. They can take your money, they can take your job, they can take your house, but they cannot take your attitude unless you give it to them. Your attitude belongs to you. And what you do with it will determine everything else in your life. The tragedy is that most people give away their attitude to their circumstances. They let their situation determine their disposition. They let their problems become bigger than their potential. They let their past define their future. But you don't have to live like that. You can choose a different path. You can choose to let your attitude determine your altitude. Maria Rodriguez made that choice. And because she made that choice, everything in her life changed. Not slowly, not gradually, but dramatically and permanently. The same opportunities available to you right now. The same power that transformed her life is available to transform your life. But it starts with a decision about your attitude. It starts with understanding that your attitude is your choice. And your choice will determine your change. This is not about pretending problems don't exist. This is about choosing how you're going to respond to the problems that do exist. This is about recognizing that every challenge in your life is an opportunity for your attitude to create a breakthrough. Your attitude is the difference between being a victim of your circumstances. Now let me show you something that will prove to you that attitude is not just a nice idea. It's a scientific reality that changes your brain, your body, and your future. December 9th, 1914. Thomas Edison's entire life's work was going up in flames. His laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey was burning to the ground. Decades of research, millions of dollars in equipment, irreplaceable prototypes. Everything was being destroyed before his eyes. His son Charles found him standing there, watching his empire burn, and he expected to see a broken man, devastated by this catastrophe. But what Charles saw instead changed his understanding of his father forever. Edison wasn't crying. He wasn't cursing. He wasn't falling apart. Instead, he turned to his son with excitement in his eyes and said, "Charles, go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see another fire like this again." Then he paused, looked at the flames consuming his life's work, and said something that reveals the secret of how attitude transforms everything. All our mistakes are burning up. Thank God we can start fresh. The next morning, Edison was back to work, not feeling sorry for himself, not blaming anyone, not giving up. He was designing his new laboratory, which would become even better than the one that burned down. That attitude didn't just help him recover. It launched him into the most productive period of his entire career. But here's what you need to understand about Edison's response. This wasn't just positive thinking. This wasn't just trying to make the best of a bad situation. This was attitude literally rewiring his brain in real time. When Edison chose to see opportunity instead of disaster, his brain began creating new neural pathways that opened up possibilities that didn't exist before the fire. Modern science has proven what Edison demonstrated that night. When you change your attitude, you literally change your brain. Your brain has something called neuroplasticity, which means it can rewire itself based on how you think. When you consistently choose attitudes of possibility instead of attitudes of defeat, your brain begins to notice opportunities that were always there but invisible to you before. Think about this. Two people can look at the exact same situation and see completely different things. One sees a problem. The other sees a possibility. One sees an obstacle. The other sees an opportunity. One sees an ending. The other sees a beginning. They're looking at the same facts, but their attitude determines what they actually see. And what you see determines what you do. And what you do determines what you get. Your attitude doesn't just change how you think. It changes how your body functions. Scientists have discovered that people with positive attitudes have stronger immune systems, lower stress hormones, and better cardiovascular health. Your attitude literally affects every cell in your body. when you maintain an attitude of gratitude and possibility. Your body produces chemicals that heal and energize you when you maintain an attitude of bitterness and defeat. Your body produces chemicals that break you down and make you sick. But the most powerful thing your attitude changes is how other people respond to you. People can sense your attitude before you even speak. They can feel whether you're carrying an attitude of hope or despair, confidence or fear, possibility or defeat, and they respond to that energy. Edison's attitude after the fire didn't just help him rebuild. It attracted investors, and team members who wanted to be part of his vision because they could feel his unshakable belief that something great was coming. Your attitude is like a magnet. It attracts people and opportunities that match its frequency. If you carry an attitude of scarcity, you'll attract people and situations that confirm scarcity. If you carry an attitude of abundance, you'll attract people and opportunities that create abundance. Edison's attitude of seeing fresh starts instead of final defeats attracted everything he needed to build something even better than what he lost. This is why two people can start with the same circumstances and end up in completely different places. The difference isn't in what happens to them. The difference is in their attitude toward what happens to them. One person's attitude turns setbacks into comebacks. Another person's attitude turns setbacks into permanent defeats. The fire that destroyed Edison's laboratory could have ended his career. Instead, his attitude transformed it into the catalyst for his greatest achievements. The same fire that could have been his end became his new beginning, not because the fire was good, but because his attitude transformed its meaning and its impact on his life. Right now, you may be facing your own fire. Something in your life may be burning down. Your attitude toward that fire will determine whether it destroys your future or creates it. The choice is yours. And that choice will change everything. Your attitude is your internal GPS. And right now, it's either navigating you toward your destiny or driving you in circles. Let me show you what I mean through a story that will change how you see every challenge in your life. Captain James Wilson was flying 300 passengers from New York to London when the unthinkable happened. At 35 feet, both engines failed. Complete engine failure. The plane was going down. And he had maybe 8 minutes to find a solution before everyone on board would die. In those 8 minutes, Captain Wilson's attitude would determine whether 300 people went home to their families or never saw them again. Now, here's what separated Captain Wilson from panic. While his co-pilot was screaming into the radio and the flight attendants were preparing for the worst, Wilson's attitude kicked into gear. He didn't waste a single second focusing on what went wrong or who was to blame. His attitude immediately shifted to one question: what can I do with what I have right now? That attitude, that focus on solutions instead of problems, gave him the clarity to remember an abandoned airstrip he had flown over countless times, but never thought he'd need. 8 minutes later, Captain Wilson landed that powerless aircraft on a tiny runway that wasn't even supposed to handle commercial jets. All 300 passengers walked away. When reporters asked him how he stayed so calm, he said something profound. My attitude told me that this wasn't the end of my story. It was just a chapter I had to navigate through. Your attitude is your internal GPS, constantly calculating the best route to your destination based on current conditions. When you face obstacles, your attitude determines whether you see them as roadblocks or as detours leading to something better. When you encounter storms, your attitude determines whether you turn back or find a way through. Most people let their circumstances become their GPS. When things get difficult, they let the difficulty determine their direction. When they face rejection, they let the rejection redirect their dreams. When they encounter failure, they let the failure become their final destination. But that's not how champions think. That's not how breakthrough happens. Captain Wilson's attitude didn't deny the reality of engine failure, but it refused to let engine failure define the outcome. His attitude said, this is what's happening, but this is not where we're staying. Your attitude has that same power. It can acknowledge your current reality while refusing to accept it as your permanent address. Your attitude determines what you notice in every situation. When Wilson's engines failed, he could have focused on the 1,000 things that were going wrong. Instead, his attitude directed his attention to the one thing that could go right, that abandoned airstrip. What you focus on expands. Focus on problems, and problems expand. The airstrip was always there. It had been there for years. But Wilson only saw it when his attitude needed to find it right now. There are solutions, opportunities, and breakthroughs around you that you're not seeing because your attitude isn't looking for them. Change your attitude, and you'll start seeing what was always there but invisible to your previous mindset. Your attitude doesn't just affect how you respond to emergencies, it affects how you respond to daily challenges, setbacks, and disappointments. Every morning when you wake up, your attitude is programming your GPS for that day. It's determining whether you look for reasons why things won't work. Wilson's attitude saved 300 lives because it stayed focused on solutions when everything seemed hopeless. Your attitude has that same power, not to save 300 people from a plane crash, but to save your dreams from crash landing, to save your relationships from failing, to save your future from being destroyed by temporary circumstances. Your attitude is your GPS, and it's time to start using it to navigate toward your destiny instead of away from it. Your attitude doesn't just transform your life, it transforms every life it touches. And I'm about to prove this to you with a story that shows how one person's attitude can literally change the trajectory of hundreds of lives. Rebecca Johnson walked into Lincoln Elementary School on her first day as principal, and what she saw broke her heart. The hallways were covered with graffiti, the teachers looked defeated, and the students had already given up on themselves. This was the worst performing school in the district, with the highest dropout rates and the lowest test scores. The previous 3 principals had quit within 2 years. Everyone expected Rebecca to fail too. But Rebecca brought something those other principals didn't have, an attitude that refused to see failure as permanent. On her very first staff meeting, instead of talking about all the problems, she stood in front of those discouraged teachers and said, "I see excellence in this room. I see teachers who chose education because they believe every child can learn. I see potential that's waiting to be unleashed." The teachers looked at her like she was seeing things that weren't there. But something in her attitude made them want to see what she was seeing. Within 1 week, something miraculous started happening. Teachers who had been planning to quit decided to stay. Why? Because Rebecca's attitude was contagious. When she walked down the hallways, she didn't see failure, she saw future doctors, lawyers, teachers, and leaders. And when she talked to those students like they were already successful, she instituted something she called excellence expectations. Instead of focusing on what students couldn't do, every teacher was required to identify and celebrate what each student could do. Instead of talking about behavioral problems, they talked about behavioral possibilities. Instead of seeing test scores as proof of limitation, they saw them as starting points for growth. The transformation was unbelievable. Within 6 months, discipline problems dropped by 60%, not because they changed the rules, but because they changed the attitude toward the students. When you treat someone like they're capable of excellence, they start rising to meet that expectation. When you treat someone like they're destined for failure, they start fulfilling that prophecy too. By the end of Rebecca's first year, Lincoln Elementary had moved from last place to 5th place in district rankings. By the end of her second year, they were number 1. But here's what's even more powerful. Those teachers took that attitude to their families, their communities, their churches. Rebecca's attitude didn't just change one school. It created a ripple effect that touched thousands of lives. Your attitude is the same way. It spreads to everyone around you, whether you realize it or not. When you walk into a room with an attitude of possibility, people feel it. When you approach challenges with an attitude of confidence, it gives others permission to be confident too. When you maintain an attitude of hope during difficult times, you become a source of strength for people who have lost their hope. But the opposite is also true. Negative attitudes are just as contagious as positive ones. When you carry an attitude of defeat, complaint, and limitation, you spread that energy to everyone around you. You become a dream killer instead of a dream builder. You become a problem creator instead of a solution finder. Rebecca understood that leadership is not about position, it's about attitude. And every person with the right attitude becomes a leader in their sphere of influence. You don't need a title to transform the atmosphere around you. You just need an attitude that believes transformation is possible and then acts like it's already happening. Now comes the most important part of everything we've talked about. You've seen how Maria Rodriguez transformed her life through attitude. You've witnessed Edison turn disaster into triumph. You've watched Captain Wilson navigate through crisis. You've seen Rebecca Johnson change an entire school. But now the question is, how do you live this reality every single day of your life? Let me tell you about Marcus Thompson. And his story will show you exactly how to make attitude your permanent advantage, not just a temporary inspiration. Marcus was born into poverty in Detroit. His father left when he was 5. His mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. And by the time he was 16, everyone in his neighborhood expected him to follow the same path as most young men around him, dropping out, getting into trouble, maybe ending up in prison. The statistics were against him. The environment was against him. Even his own family had started giving up on him. But Marcus had learned something that changed everything. He had learned that every morning when he woke up, he had a choice to make. Not a choice about his circumstances, those were what they were, but a choice about his attitude toward his circumstances. And that choice would determine whether this day moved him closer to his dreams or further away from them. Every single morning, before his feet hit the floor, Marcus would say to himself, today is my opportunity to build the future I want. Not someday, not when things get better, today, right now, with exactly what he had in this moment. That attitude became his daily practice, and that daily practice became his life transformation. But Marcus didn't stop there. He understood something crucial about protecting your attitude. He realized that attitude is like a garden. If you don't tend to it daily, weeds will grow and choke out everything good. So he made decisions about what he would allow into his mind and what he would keep out. He stopped spending time with people who constantly complained about their situations but never did anything to change them. Not because he thought he was better than them, but because he knew their attitude would contaminate his attitude. He started surrounding himself with people who were also building something, creating something, moving towards something bigger than their current reality. He stopped consuming entertainment that celebrated failure, violence, and hopelessness. Instead, he filled his mind with books about people who had overcome obstacles, built businesses, and created value in the world. He understood that what goes into your mind comes out in your attitude. And your attitude, Marcus developed what he called his gratitude ritual. Every night before bed, he would write down 3 things he was grateful for that day. Not big things. He didn't have many big things to be grateful for yet. Small things. The fact that he had food to eat. The fact that he was healthy. The fact that tomorrow was another opportunity. This practice trained his mind to look for what was working instead of what was wrong. He also created what he called possibility conversations with himself. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? He would ask, how can I use this to become stronger? Instead of saying, I can't afford this, he would say, how can I create the income to afford this? Instead of thinking, I don't have the connections, he would think, how can I become the kind of person who attracts the right connections? The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened consistently, day by day. Marcus's attitude was creating new opportunities, new relationships, new possibilities. By the time he was 21, he had started his first business. By 25, he owned 3 businesses and was employing people from his own neighborhood. By 30, He had become a millionaire and was funding scholarships for kids who came from the same circumstances he came from. But here's the most important part of Marcus's story. His success didn't come from changing his circumstances first and then changing his attitude. His success came from changing his attitude first, and then his attitude changed his circumstances. The same poverty that could have defeated him became the motivation that drove him. The same obstacles that could have stopped him became the training ground that strengthened him. Marcus understood that attitude is not about pretending problems don't exist. It's about choosing to focus on solutions instead of problems. It's about asking better questions. It's about protecting your mind from influences that drain your hope and filling it with influences that fuel your faith in what's possible. You have the same opportunity that Marcus had. You have the same choice that he made every morning, right now, in this moment. You can decide that your attitude will no longer be determined by your circumstances. You can decide that your attitude will determine your circumstances. But you have to make this choice every single day. You have to guard your attitude like you guard your most valuable possession, because it is your most valuable possession. You have to be intentional about what you feed your mind, who you spend time with, and how you talk to yourself about your situation. Your attitude is the only thing in this world that belongs completely to you. Nobody can force you to have a bad attitude unless you give them permission. Nobody can steal your positive attitude unless you hand it over to them. Your attitude is your choice, and your choice is your power right now. Some of you are facing challenges that seem impossible. Some of you are dealing with situations that feel overwhelming. Some of you have been disappointed so many times that you're afraid to hope again. But I want you to understand something that will change your life forever. Your current situation is not your final destination. It's just your current location. And your attitude is the vehicle that will take you from where you are to where you want to be. But you have to make a decision. You have to choose to let your attitude drive your life instead of letting your circumstances drive your attitude. Maria Rodriguez made that choice. And it took her from cleaning offices to running offices. Edison made that choice. And it turned his greatest disaster into his greatest triumph. Captain Wilson made that choice. And it saved 300 lives. Rebecca Johnson made that choice. And it transformed hundreds of futures. Marcus Thompson made that choice. And it broke generational cycles of poverty and limitation. Now it's your turn. Your attitude is waiting for your decision. Your future is waiting for your choice. Your destiny is waiting for you to take control of the one thing you have complete power over. Your attitude toward everything that happens in your life. The power to transform your life is not in your circumstances. It's in your attitude toward your circumstances. And that attitude, that choice, that power, it belongs to you. Use it. Guard it. Let it guide you to the life you were meant to live. Your attitude is your advantage. Make sure you use it.